Hey everybody, Plushie here, and today I just want to briefly go over the 3 Liz buffs we got for this Halloween event. They tend to like to buff all of them at once because they're pretty underpowered characters, and last time unfortunately I would say none of them really did anything. So let's take a look at what they did this time and whether it actually helped them or not. So first of all, Caster Liz got an MP upgrade, and it kind of feels like a follow-up to her buff the last time on her first skill, and we'll see very quickly why that is. But before we actually look at the MP upgrade, I want to give you guys a refresher of what they did to her first skill. So her skill 1, after the buff, increased her star gen per turn as well as the heal, but the biggest change of the skill is they added a buff removal effect where she will attempt to remove one latest buff from all enemies. And for each enemy that actually had their buffs removed, she will put a special debuff called Happy Halloween on them for 3 turns. The Happy Halloween debuff itself is a 10% crit rate down, but more importantly, Elizabeth charges her own MP according to how many enemies have this debuff. So this skill, after trying to strip their buffs and then casting this debuff, will charge her MP, and then for each enemy that has this debuff on them, it is a 20% charge. So it can go up to 60 against 3 enemies, and of course even more if there are more than 3 enemies. Now this skill was not a very good skill even after the buff, simply because it is kind of clunky. You can't really guarantee this to actually remove buffs from the enemy, so sometimes this just does not charge any MP, and also this is completely useless in farming. So that's maybe why they decided to do this MP upgrade. The base damage is increased, of course, but the MP now also applies 3 turns of Happy Halloween debuffs on all enemies. So she doesn't have to remove buffs anymore in order for her first skill to have any MP charge effect, which again, as I mentioned earlier, even in challenge quests, you can't really guarantee enemies to have removable debuffs, so this is nice. But of course you would have to use this MP, then use her first skill in order to get the charge. So it's still a little bit awkward to me. I kind of see where they're going with this because the first skill has a really short cooldown. She is Buster as well, so you can pair her with Koyan Light. And her third skill is already a 30 MP battery. So she has some initial charge to use her MP if you really want to save her first skill for kind of just using her MP for a second time. But overall, I don't think it's that strong of an effect. There's a lot of setup involved, and it doesn't even stack according to how many of these debuffs exist on the field, because if that's the case, then maybe you can strip all their buffs and then apply 1 stack, and then MP again to apply 2 stacks, and then have the first skill be a full charge, but that is not really the case. The MP now also applies 3 turns of Halloween Battlefield, and currently there are 0 servants that synergize with this. Not even the new SSR Liz, but I can see the new Welfare Avenger Liz, whose entire kit is still a mystery, have some kind of synergy with this. Once again, I don't believe she can have any effect that will make this impactful enough to make Caster Liz good. Once again, this feels more like a buff that is supposed to make full Liz teams slightly more viable than pure trash. But it's still going to be largely a meme team. And finally, the MP also increases the entire party's crit up by 20 to 60% for 3 turns that scales with overcharge. I'm gonna be completely honest, even if we just look at welfares and low stars, this is not a great supportive effect. I understand this is on an offensive MP, so she's not a pure support, therefore she's easily going to lose to characters such as Santa Abby, who's a pure support. But then again, I don't think her DPS is that great, so she's just this awkward mix of support and offense. And the idea is she's supposed to spam her MP to get this to stack multiple times, and her MP upgrade combined with her first skill upgrade is supposed to allow her to do that, but even if you're facing off against 3 enemies, which is like best case scenario, you're still just getting 60% charge after delaying your first skill for a turn. So it's not great, and I still don't think this is enough incentive to include her into your team. Interestingly enough, I guess, is that because this scales with overcharge, she has interesting synergy with the new Lancer Liz, SSR, because she has a very easy way of giving the entire party overcharge by just attacking with Buster attacks. She will give the entire party 1 time of overcharge boost for 3 turns. probably their actual goal, once again, is just to make her better in the Liz team. But for most people, I would say she's not good enough to include. Overall, the buff looks stacked because it's an MP upgrade with 3 extra effects. But before we see Elizabeth Avenger welfare, this is just super disappointing. I think she is still just not going to see any play after the buff. The second Liz buff we got is for Mecha Liz, and this one's actually pretty crazy. So her third skill got buffed. Originally, it removes all of her defensive buffs as a demerit when she activates it, and it gives her a 1-turn 60% crit up and 60% MP damage up. So it's kind of a big burst skill with a pretty heavy demerit. But now, both of these buffs are 3-turn duration. And that's pretty crazy because the skill also only has a 5-turn cooldown. So this is generally more steroids than even modern SSRs, right? Modern SSRs probably would have had 50% each at best. And 60% each on such a short cooldown is crazy. And the demerit is not even that bad if you just time this correctly. Just use this skill first, then use like something such as Illusion in order to protect her, or Castoria MP, right? So this is barely a demerit if you're not, being reckless. And with such a powerful damage steroid on both cards and MP, I think she's kind of solid. She's back to what she's good at, which is just being a really straightforward buster beat stick. Like previously, she was already that, but her damage kind of get power crept. So when she doesn't have this buff up, her damage is really lackluster. But now she's gonna basically always have this buff up. So yeah, I like this a lot. It's still not going to make her very viable in farming because she only has a 20% MP battery. And in most cases, she's just going to be using her MP once in each farming anyways. So this ironically didn't help her farming that much. But in a challenge quest, if you're using like double Koyan Light, you can easily double stack this, which is 120% MP damage up and 120% crit up. Reminder that she also has a star per turn skill and 3 buster cards. So she's going to be carding hard, she's going to be MPing hard, and even if you're running like a full free-to-play setup, 5-turn cooldown with a Pen 5 unlocked becomes 4-turn cooldown, so she can almost have like no downtime. One of her old problems was, I don't necessarily want the MP and the crit up to be on the same turn because I don't always have both at the same time. Well, you don't have to worry about that either anymore with the duration extension. That's actually not it, by the way. The skill also gained an additional effect where whenever she attacks, she burns the enemy with 500 damage for 3 turns, and that on attack effect also lasts for 3 turns. And it burns before the attacks do damage. So basically, it functions the exact same as a burn command code. It will automatically trigger CEs such as Honey Lake or the current Welfare Halloween CE. So it's not gonna always be useful, but of course it's a really nice bonus. And overall, just from the duration extension alone, I think this is arguably my favorite buff out of the 3. And she's still not going to be a top tier DPS, obviously, because modern servants just have way more completed kits and all she has is damage. But I feel like sometimes all you need is damage. And if that occasion rises up, then Mecha Liz is going to be a really nice budget option. And finally, we also got a Lancer Liz buff. This time it's also on her 3rd skill. It's her very lackluster gut skill. And now it gives a 30 MP battery and 3 turns of 30% buster up. That's it. But that's honestly pretty solid. It's almost like a quality of life update because most modern servants have 30 MP battery at least and a color buff. And that's exactly what they gave her. This means that she can get her MP a lot easier now compared to before. That was one of her bigger issues as a pseudo DPS pseudo support. This also means she can bust her loop, even though she's probably not going to be the best at it still. Honestly, I'm still not 100% sure that she's gonna see a lot of play in multi-core because her self battery is still relatively small and she has no party charge, except I think she's really solid when specifically paired with the SSR Lancer Liz in multi-core, because the SSR Lancer Liz gets more charge on her 2nd skill with more Liz's in the front line. So with this 4-star Lancer Liz and herself in the front line, her 2nd skill becomes a second 50% MP battery. So she would have 100 total battery, split into 50/50s, which is really strong for multi-core. And also, Lancer Liz has party charge, and she charges Liz members with 20% more charge whenever she MPs. So overall, it almost feels like this is another built-in synergy, because both issues that the 4-star Lancer Liz has in multi-core is solved by the 5-star Lancer Liz, and they're both in the same class as well. So if you're stacking them against Archer 90++, for example, they're gonna work well together. But outside of that, I don't think a normal 90++ has space for this character, unless maybe the event has 50 starting charge CE and you don't need any charge anymore. She can see some play as well. And finally, I think she's also going to excel specifically in Grand Lancer raids, because in that raid, you want to kill off the 2 trash mobs beside Indra in order to remove the damage resist he has on himself, so you can finish him off with a single target. And now, Liz, with this extra buff, her damage is a lot better. As you can see here on the list, her raw MP damage is quite high, higher than some SSRs even, and she buffs females a bunch. So if your single target is a female, then Liz plus them is going to be a really nice 2-man core to farm that. And also, the battery, of course, helps Liz get her MP easier, so you don't need to include a lot of extra chargers on your team. So overall, I think Liz is going to see the most play in Grand Lancer raids, which just so happens is returning soon with the 0 Storm Pod period. Like, we're gonna get Grand Lancer raid with 0 Storm Pod cost very soon, so she's gonna see a lot of play there. Outside of that, as I've said earlier, very good synergy with the SSR Lancer Liz. Anywhere else, she's just okay. So overall, I think the Caster Liz buff is not enough to make her viable. The Mecha Ellie buff is really nice for her. Not so much in farming, but in challenge quests, especially for budget teams. She's really good now as just a pure firepower DPS. And Lancer Liz is going to see a bunch of play in Grand Lancer raid. Outside of that, she has the basic functionalities of a modern servant. You know, she can Buster Loop, she has batteries, and she has a color buff, but none of them is too significant compared to her main use, which is her first and second skill. So yeah, I like those buffs a lot better than last time. I guess they just gave up on trying to save Elizabeth Bathory Brave, and also they didn't want to touch 9 Tattooed Dragon either, which I think they could have, and she had some potential, but unfortunately they didn't. But yeah, pretty good buffs overall, and thank you guys for watching. I'll see you guys in the next one.